Wealth, fame, power. Ascend the esports, once kings. Attain this and everything else Valorant had to offer at the time. And at their peak, drove countless souls to the servers. You want this trophy? You can have it. Everything we gathered can be attained at this one place. You just have to earn it. These words lured countless organizations to the VCT in pursuit of dreams many dare to imagine. This is the time known as the Great Valorant Champions Tour era.
Come aboard and bring along all your hopes and dreams. Together we will find everything that we're looking for. One Piece.
Yes, today I'll be living up to my username and combine my love of anime and esports into one video. We'll be focusing on the Straw Hat Pirates specifically, but if this video gets over 200 likes, I'll do every VCT team next time. Now for the first Straw Hat Pirate, we're going to be talking about Jinbe, who's described as a calm, honorable, and sneaky strong individual. He's a fishman and former warlord of the world government. And warlords of the world government are kind of like drug dealers who publicly work for the CIA or FBI. He constantly puts the needs of others before his own pride. And when you put all that together, I think that has to be Fnatic, who even till this day are sneaky strong, even though many of their current members aren't considered the GOATs of Valorant, despite having more hardware than other players who are considered the GOAT of Valorant. And during their peak, when they won back-to-back international major titles, they never once embraced the villain role. They were strong without arrogance. And even leading up to the events of Durka, their star duelist, leaving the team, each of their teammates spoke highly of him, saying that if he was in the Americas, he would be getting a lot more credit for what he does for a team. And one thing that really sticks out to me with Fnatic is their IGL, aka in-game leader, Boaster. When a match was cancelled due to technical difficulties, he was one of the first individuals to offer fans some consolation prize that were disappointed that they weren't able to watch them play. And this is big because a lot of these fans flew out from Japan and other places around the world just to watch them play in Germany. Because at the end of the day, Boaster knows that without fans like these, Valorant or the VCT wouldn't be a thing at all. And when it comes to Jinbe himself, one of the most iconic moments was when he gave blood to Luffy. You see, since Jinbe is a fishman, in the world of One Piece they are seen as lesser creatures. And because of all this friction between humans and fishmen, a lot of them despise each other. Jinbe giving blood to Luffy was a very bold thing to do, because not only would he be considered an enemy of the world government, but even his own people might have seen him as an Uncle Tom. But he did it anyways because he knew it was the right thing to do. Without a doubt, Fnatic is the Jinbe of the VCT. Humble, calm, and strong. Next we have Brook, who is described as a funny and musical person. He has what we call the revive fruit. It's both a blessing and a curse. It practically makes him immortal, but also means that he will outlive everyone that he comes in contact with. Despite this setback, he still has the will to live and interact with other people while using his talents to bring joy to those around him. So when it comes to finding an organization, it would have to be one that I personally think that would outlive all the other organizations. And I'm going with Team Liquid. They are a pretty well-known organization. I can see them functioning for a long time. Now you have to understand, Team Liquid is big in both North America, EU, as well as Brazil. They have multiple training facilities, top tier teams in Valorant, CSGO, Dota, League, StarCraft, Smash, and so many more. Also, Liquid is a media empire, so it kind of fits the musical side of Brooks too. They are one of the oldest organizations in the esports realm that is still standing today, that brings joy to many of their fans. So Team Liquid, without a doubt for me, is the Brook of the VCT. Here we have Franky, who's basically the engineer of the Straw Hat Pirates. He's a wicked genius when it comes to making things, as well as just being very loud in his voice and appearance. And when it comes to the VCT, I feel like this is a perfect fit for, unironically, the Brazilians, Loud, whose fanbase is quite boisterous and unique too. One of the things I like most about Loud, especially when comparing them to Franky, is their unique designs when it comes to team comps. They were one of the first organizations to embrace Harbor, who is a Valorant character that a lot of other teams just wrote off as being horrible. But the way they used him and Viper to decimate the competition will forever be remembered. However, they also trademarked a very unique team comp of having 7 flashes. During a time where some were speculating that flashes were kinda useless in Valorant. They're not afraid to try really wacky things like putting their in-game leader as duelist, and still winning those games. For me, Loud and Franky might as well be the same individuals. Next, let's talk about Nico Robin, who's considered the scholar of the One Piece crew. She is a very quiet, yet smart and knowledgeable member. And when it comes to playing Valorant in a very smart way, we have to go with G2, who are all about strategies, which is something that you need in a tactical based shooter. They once caught a lot of flack by sacrificing themselves in the game of Valorant, but at the end of the day, it was low-key a smart move to do. And when it comes to iconic moments in One Piece, you just have to listen to what she has to say.
Tell me you wanna live!
This is nothing but a crime.
The whole world's against you, Robin. You can't be allowed to live.
The sea's a vast place, so I guarantee someday you'll find friends who won't ever leave you.
I want to live!
This was a monumental moment for all these characters. It means that they were declaring war against the world government, and they were doing it because of their friend. Now, if you know anything about G2's history, you knew that originally they were an EMEA team, or at least they were set to be one in the Valorant Partnership League era, but they were kicked out because of some comments from their CEO. Fast forward, they are now in the Americas, because the core of these players were also cheated by their original org, the Guard. These guys were also on death's doorsteps, in a sense where they probably were going to get picked apart by other teams and not play in the VCT. However, fans declared to Riot that that wasn't fair, and a bidding war started. It's kind of poetic how both these entities were so close to not existing, but came together to make something happen. Without a doubt, G2 is definitely the Nico Robin of Valorant. Now, when it comes to Chopper, we have to realize that he is the medic of the team. One of the running gags with this individual is the fact that he's not considered a threat. The outside world just sees him as a pet, nothing to be taken seriously. But for those who know the story of One Piece, they truly know how much of a threat he can be. So when it comes to picking a Valorant team, it has to be someone who's always considered an underdog and has shocked people in the past. And for that, it has to be Bilibili Gaming. For most Chinese teams, they aren't considered contenders ever, unless you're Edward Gaming. But Bilibili is no strangers to upsets. One of their most well-known was their matchup against NRG in Champs of 2023. They were able to outclass this Americas team not once, but twice. And this isn't anything new. They've done this a couple of times later as well. Even recently, they were able to take down the Champs 2024 leaders, Edward Gaming, in their own region. Now this is very significant because Edward Gaming had never missed an international tournament, but it was Bilibili that were the ones to send them packing and deny the opportunity of continuing that streak. Fans and players can continue to sleep on Bilibili, but it could be at your own detriment. Plus, during that NRG game, they had a very unique playstyle that kind of represents Chopper too. You see, he's not the most physically imposing individual, so he has to think outside the box to keep up with other members. Just like how Bilibili sometimes has to think outside the box and play differently than the rest of the competition. Now, I'm not gonna lie, for Sanji, I kind of had a hard time figuring out who or which organization in the VCT represents him the most. When it comes to this individual, he's the cook of the team, but is also quite charismatic, empathetic, and has a strong moral code, as well as just deep loyalty too. He basically had a whole arc dedicated to him about how he left the Straw Hat Pirates, but for their own betterment. And when it comes to combat, he mainly just uses his legs in an offensive style. And he was able to hone this technique so well that he's able to like low-key walk on air and even ignite his legs on fire. With all that being said, the closest that I can think of is Fun Plus Phoenix, who also have a very unorthodox fighting style since last year. But hey, if you guys have a better team, let me know down below. Next, we have Usopp, who is considered not only the comedic relief of the team, but the sharpshooter slash sniper for them. His expertise has came in clutch for the Straw Hats many times in the past. And I truly feel like Paper Rex embodies Usopp the best. This team just knows one thing, and that's just clicking heads, as well as just having a very strong loyalty to each other. You see, one of the most iconic moments of Usopp is the fact that he was unwilling to let the Going Merry, the previous ship, go away. It got so bad that he even fought the captain about it. You see, one of the members, Jing, on the team briefly left them because he had military duty to fulfill for his country. However, he would return due to some loopholes and medical conditions. It kind of also reminds me how Usopp left the crew but also came back under a gag identity. Without a doubt, Paper X is the Usopp of the VCT. It just wouldn't feel right without them. Here we'll talk about Nami, who is considered the navigator for the crew. She is usually considered the voice of reason, as well as having a phenomenal love of money and treasure, more than your typical pirate. When it comes to motivations and driving forces, one of the earlier ones was the fact that she wanted to free her village, as well as being one of the first individuals to draw a complete map of the world. And when you put all these things about Nami together, I feel like Jinbe represents her the best. You see, Jinbe is part of the Pacific League, which was one of the last leagues to win an international trophy, out of the 3 original ones. In fact, it took them a little bit over 1,000 days to do so since the inception of the Valorant esports scene. So in a way, you can say that they kind of freed the Pacific League from that stigma of being chokers. As well as the fact that Nami isn't your typical traditional fighter. She doesn't use her fists or legs. She has to think outside the box, just like how Jinbe quite often had to think outside the box too. They were one of the first teams to beat Sentinels on Split in 2024, which was a very tall task to do, and they did it using double duelists, as well as the fact that they're one of the few teams that ran Astra after her numerous nerfs. Now, for the last 2 characters, we have Zoro, who's considered the second in command, and Luffy, the leader of the Straw Hat Pirates. And when it came to finding organizations that represent both of these individuals, the last 2 that I mentioned were kind of interchangeable for me at least. But for Zoro, I have to say it's EDG. You see, in the One Piece fandom, a lot of people have Zoro as their favorite character, mainly because of his fighting style and stoic personality. There's also this running gag that Zoro always gets lost. Fans love it so much that sometimes they put Zoro in different animated universes. And when it comes to Edward Gaming, sometimes you wonder how the heck did they get here? They were one of the first Chinese teams to play in the VCT, all the way back in 2022. And when they showed up, a lot of people were like, where did these guys come from? And then if we fast forward to Masters Tokyo, they were able to do the unthinkable and beat a loud team. And a year later, they were able to lift Champions 2024 trophy. And even that run seemed like it came out of nowhere. You see, beforehand, they were struggling during the year 2024 at the international stage. But when it mattered the most, they came in clutch, just like Zoro. Now, you could make an argument that EDG is the protagonist of the VCT, but I personally cannot. And that's mainly because the main character of One Piece is too goofy to be Edward Gaming, even though they do have a strong case of being considered the main characters of the VCT. I will have to go with Sentinels, because not only have they been very strong throughout Valorant's history, but their organization can be considered a bunch of goofballs too. Even during their worst moments in 2020 and 2023, they provided fans a lot of humorous moments to just smile and laugh at, which is the embodiment of Luffy, an individual who is strong but always smiling through it all. Truly the joy boy of that universe. Let me know down below what you agree and disagree with. Till next time, stay safe, be a KDA warrior, and I'll see you guys later.